This is a video on how to play the acoustic part for Mumford&Sons' The Cave. As you can see, to play this song you need two things: the tuning to be starting from the strings at the top of the guitar, D, A, D, F sharp, A, D, as well as a capo on the second fret of the guitar. This BPM up here means beats per minute. If you don't know what this is, it isn't that important, but it is useful for those who do know what it is. For those who do know what it is, I've posted a link to an online metronome down below. Here is the key or legend to be able to understand my notations throughout the song. I recommend pausing the video to write this down so you can refer to it later on. These are the only chords that you need to know for this song, that is D, G, A, and B minor. There are a few ways to play these. The original artists play them as they appear on the screen in the red rectangle, but you can play them in the alternate form that I have listed to the side. Here is the outline of the song. Again, I recommend writing this down as well as having the lyrics to the song ready. Something that you need to learn to make the song sound good when you play it is learning to understand the dynamics, or how the loudness of the song changes. I've already learned this. In an attempt to help you play to this effect, I have changed how certain parts are played. Being able to change the strumming style to change the dynamics becomes especially important when you play this song individually with no other instruments, as I am sure most of you are. The intro, verse 1, and verse 2 are all picked and played as displayed on the screen. Between the intro and verse 1, and between verse 1 to verse 2, there is no transition. More accurately, there is a transition, but it is a brief pause or rest in playing. This note pattern that is displayed is played all throughout the song, with the choruses being the exception, using the different methods of strumming I have marked in the key. In fact, only the intro and the first two verses are picked, whereas the rest are strummed. From the second verse to the first chorus, there is a transition, which is played immediately after. Here I've displayed the transition. It is 4 single down strums while utilizing right hand muting. Here I will play from verse 2 to the transition into the first chorus. Remember, verse 2, the intro, and verse 1 are all the same, so except for the transition at the end, this clip will have shown you how to play the intro in verse 1 as well. This is the first of the 3 choruses for this song. All 3 choruses are played using the same notes in the same places, except how they are strummed is different. For this chorus you need to use down strums with right hand muting. As for the style of the strumming, keep the focus of your strumming in the middle strings. Keep in mind that as you play this part, you want to start off playing lightly and increase in loudness, only to about a medium level, if that. Here is how the chorus is played. Before I go into this, I'm actually going to give you a caution. The second part of this chorus being defined as when you start using the B minor, or when the first B minor is used, you want to stop with the right hand muting, and you want to start just regular down strums. And the caution being that when you do this, you need to do so in a manner that isn't awkward with regards to the dynamics. And I mention this because if you are strumming at this strength, when you're right hand muting, as soon as you let go with the palm, it's gonna, if you're going with the same strength, it's gonna be a very awkward increase in the dynamic. It's gonna be very sudden, and you want the whole kind of thing to be gradual. I have a whole video on dynamics that I will post as supplemental information. So, but here we go. The whole sequence between the first chorus to the third verse is made up of 2 parts. The first part is the riff. It is played without using right hand muting and is down strums. I only play the 2 strings that have notes placed in them. However, you could play 3 strings, just replace the asterisk that I have marked with zeros, indicating an open string. Following the riff, there is a transition I have called transition 2. Transition 2 is the second most noteworthy transition to occur. That is, it excludes the brief pauses mentioned earlier between the intro and verse 1 and verse 1 to verse 2. These 2 parts, the riff and transition 2, flow together and are best thought of when playing as one single part. If you follow the entire sequence from riff to transition, you will see that the notation pattern is almost exactly the same as an intro notation sequence. The riff resembles the first part of the intro sequence, while the transition represents the rest of the intro sequence. There are, however, a few differences. First, notice that instead of being picked, it is strummed. Second, the riff and the beginning to the intro sequence are different. If we followed the pattern created by the intro, we'd expect to see something like we do at the bottom. Instead, however, the riff on the left side demonstrates how it is actually performed. This difference is why I separated the part between the chorus and verse 3 into a riff and a transition. Additionally, the riff is played with down strums, whereas a transition is played with up-down strumming. Third, not only is the transition being strummed, there is a rather peculiar way in which it is strummed. Notice how the focus of the strums are first on the top few strings and then on the middle to bottom few strings. I have indicated this in my key with a T2B, which means top to bottom style strumming. To help explain this, follow along as the notes are circled in red. The green lines are there for organizational purposes to mark the end of a brief pattern. These notes circled in red are how the intro would be played. Notice the rise and fall of the strings that are plucked. To keep with this rise and fall pattern, it only makes sense that the area of focus for strumming should rise and fall accordingly. In this manner, not only is a rhythm created, or maintained rather, but the notes that make up the pattern are not drowned out because only 2 additional strings are being played with it, as opposed to 5 additional strings if you were fully strummed. Also, it should go without saying, but notice that the 2/4 slide at the start of the second half of the notation is in the middle, not at the top or the bottom. This is the reason why I was reluctant to call it top to bottom style strumming. It would be better thought of as focus strumming. Here is the rest of this transition. As you can see, instead of holding down the 4th fret for just the top string, I do it for the top 3 strings. Whether this is accurate or not, I think so, but I am unsure. I myself think it sounds better than just holding down the 4th fret of the top string. As we reach this part of the transition, we see the focus on the strumming pattern does not deviate. 2 strums at the top, 2 at the bottom, then we make a return to the middle 3 strings for the parts encircled. It doesn't matter if you are strumming up and down, just down, or down with right hand muting. This style can be used and is frequently used. Here's how the riff and transition are played. For the riff, I'm going to play it slowly because I have trouble playing it fast and making it sound as I have notated it or how it should sound. So it's fast, it would be. For verse 3, you want to use right hand muting and down strumming, utilizing the top to bottom style of strumming, until you get to the part that says no right hand muting. Play this as 2 strong down strums with no right hand muting. These 2 strong down strums create a sudden rise in dynamic that will be continued in verse 4. Follow this with a very brief rest before getting into verse 4. For verse 4, play with no right hand muting using up-down strumming and top-to-bottom style strumming. Remember to play it just as loud as you played the sudden rise in dynamic that was created at the end of verse 3. I will now play verse 3 to verse 4 so you can see what I mean by the rise in dynamic that is created at the end of verse 3. Riff 2 is the same as Riff 1, except for in this situation I recommend you use up-down strumming because when you get into the chorus will be an up-down strumming, and so it'll be a smoother transition. Go straight into the second chorus using up-down strumming pattern. Either slowly increase the dynamic or keep it on the same level, but do not decrease it. For the chorus, you don't have to worry about the top to bottom pattern, simply keep the focus of the strumming in the middle of the strings. However, if you can play it without it sounding awkward, I would suggest you focus the strumming on the lower strings only at the time in which he says I for the first part of the verse. It sounds better, and I highly suspect this is what he's doing. From the second chorus to the fifth verse, there is a transition that creates a sudden change in the song's dynamic, this time from loud to soft. This is done by changing the speed of strumming. Note that how these parts are played and how they are shown vary, simply because they are something that is more of an idea. I'll play from riff 2 through the third transition so you have an idea of how those parts are played together.
I just want to mention something about the chorus chords with regards to how long you should hold each note, and that is that what I have posted is our guesses, my best guess, but when you're playing along and you're singing to the song, you should really have a more of a feel for it. So these might not be completely accurate, but they'll help you get through. So here we go.
So far, all the verses have come in two sets, verse 1 and verse 2, and verse 3 and verse 4. This verse, however, comes paired with what I have called the pre-chorus, and this verse is the last verse. Use down strumming, right hand muting, top to bottom style, and play it softly. Remember, the change in the song's dynamic in transition 3 should be continued. Pre-chorus has two parts. Both parts follow the same note pattern as the chorus. In fact, the second part of the pre-chorus is the second part of the chorus. At the start of part 1, you want to keep the same level of soft playing that was created in verse 5, but you want to slowly increase the volume so that when you reach the second part, you can stop using right hand muting and keep the down strumming going in a manner that isn't awkward. This creates a gradual rise in the song's dynamic. Going back to the first part, I recommend strumming in a manner similar to what I had mentioned in the second chorus. That is, focus the strum on either the top or the bottom of the strings only where indicated. Again, I strongly suspect this is what is being done. Besides that, it matches up with the singing. Now comes the last transition. These are all chords played in full up-down strum, no top to bottom or focusing on any strings of the guitar, just regular 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 strumming. The numbers represent the down strums and the ampersands represent the up strums. This is the lead up to the big finish, so play it loud and hard, emphasizing the first down strum of every D chord that is played, but only when the D chord is played 4 times. So here's the big finish. Continue the up-down strumming hard. At the end, you can either stop all at once or do something similar to the transition 3, the one that led to verse 5. Here I will perform from transition 4 into chorus 3 for you. Hope this helps, and feel free to post.
I really don't want to go over my time limit
having knowledge and having skill
and have to make another video, so I'm going to try to make this quick. I'm trying to predict questions that people have. So one of them is, what do you mean by 1, 2, 3, 4? And for the D times 4, G times 2. And what I mean is, if this is 1, down up, then 4 would be 4 of those in a succession, 2 would be 2 of those in a succession. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And another thing, remember, when you're doing the transition is, when you're doing the transition and final chorus, is every time you get a D played 4 times in succession, the first one is always emphasized. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. All right. So I'm really not going to actually have time to go through the whole thing. Just those main points to keep in mind, and also alternate way of ending the song. So you get to the last line, which is "I'll know my name as it's called again." So you play, it would be 5, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you could end it shortly after you do this. You can end it like you did. I believe there's a transition in which you kind of did something random, sort of picking. That I said, it's more of an idea, which was just because I didn't know how to tab it out correctly. But you can kind of do something like this, and then 1 and 2 and see, simple. So